What's going on, you guys? Gaming Ad here. I have played God of War Ragnarok from beginning to end. And this is pretty much the video where I'm going to go into detail on exactly how I felt about the game. This will be spoilers, so warning to you now. Please no comment section saying, "Oh, Addict, why didn't you tell me?" I'm telling you now. There's going to be spoilers. Let's go straight into it, man. Let's go straight into it. I've been waiting for this game for a long time. Since 2018, when we knew they were going to do something different. They were going to do a different game that was a sequel to that 2018 greatness that St. Monica did. And we finally got it. Now, there's obviously issues with this game. One thing I want to say is I'm just still not feeling the way PlayStation and you know, St. Monica has downplayed the violence in God of War, because you see it in games like Last of Us Part 2, but you don't see it in the God of War franchise anymore. And I feel like that's crazy to think that it can be in Last of Us Part 2 and sexual activity can be in Last of Us Part 2, violence, gore, but it's not in God of War. So I don't know if that's a PlayStation thing or if that's a St. Monica. Maybe they're trying to appeal to a wider audience where, sure, there's violence in the game, but there's not to the extent of gore that used to be in God of War. I mean, you guys remember in God of War 3, 2, 1, you know, those old ones, they would rip off body parts. They would do a lot of stuff. And, you know, the blood would just be used everywhere. Maybe it was too much. Maybe they have went to a good middle ground. I don't think it's a good middle ground, but a lot of people, you know, doesn't matter. Does the gore and, just to make the game an N-rated game in general, does that matter to the core of God of War? And I would say it does. I know a lot of people don't think that. A lot of people feel like God of War is more about the story of that Greek, that Norse mythology and fighting gods than it is about the gore, you know, the sexual activities that goes on in God of War. But I feel like it's a mixture of both. And that's just my opinion on the matter. Now, it's like I said, I'm not going to sit here and act like the game didn't do what it did well. It did what it well, very good. It's just, to me, personally, just to me, I feel like them letting the brakes off when it comes to gore and stuff made it feel a little bit less God of War and more towards something else. Now, this still is God of War to its core, but it just doesn't feel 100% God of War. It feels like the foundation of God of War is there, but the little nitty gritty that's in the house isn't there anymore. It's like, you know, you bought a house and sold it a couple years later. Sure, that was your home at one point in time, but it's no longer your home now. I think that this would have been better as a spinoff without Kratos. Maybe someone in Norse mythology. I don't know. You know, maybe they needed the Kratos name and the God of War name to get people interested in something like this. I'm just interested in how they move on with the God of War franchise. Now let's talk about the ending of the game. Once again, spoiler territory. For the love of God, spoiler territory. I'm just curious on where they were going with this. Now, okay, let's talk a little bit about what's going on. In the end of Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok, they summoned this creature named Ragnarok. Now, pretty much what they did is, you guys saw in the commercials, they had the two Valkyrie that was fighting like the little black platform. That's where all this goes down. And I didn't mind that. That's not the issue. The issue that I had was after you defeat Odin, because originally you were supposed to use Ragnarok to break the walls in Asgard to get to Odin. Well, you decide that's no longer an option that you want to do because you don't want to kill all the people there that Odin put there, so you don't necessarily need Ragnarok anymore. And then they don't do anything else with that character. Now, I know that they explained what happened to Ragnarok technically, because after you defeat Odin, he destroys Asgard. But if you guys played this, Ragnarok was made in like an abyss place anyway. To me, that wouldn't kill him. I get the mindset and I get what they're going with, but it's like one of those things. You beat Odin, Ragnarok shows up, kills Freya's brother, and then they never really talk about Ragnarok ever again. And I thought, okay, maybe if I go back to where he was created, maybe there'd be like a little boss fight or something to do with there. Nothing like that happened. let's talk about another thing that really annoyed me when it comes to the story of God of War Ragnarok. The use of Thor. Now, I'm not going to say they did a horrible job using Thor. Thor himself was a fantastic character. Loved him. But I did not like how they used him in the end of the story. Again, spoiler. You should have already been out, but I'm going to say it again. Spoiler. Odin ends up killing Thor. I get it. They were building Thor up to betray Odin the entire game. So I'm thinking what's going to end up happening is Thor is going to see through Odin at the end, and he's going to come together with you and fight Odin. I thought that would be a good scenario. Or B, Odin would end up killing Thor, or you would kill Thor, which mainly I would assume you would kill Thor because it would make more sense because of the rage that Odin has put on Thor, and then you would get Thor's hammer at the end of the game to use to fight Odin. I would have preferred Odin and Kratos teaming up to fight Thor and Kratos teaming up to fight Odin. I felt like all that build up with Odin, and it didn't really go anywhere. For the most part, they were talking to each other. They said, yo, let's go ahead and stop this beef for our children. And I get it. You know, a lot of people want to say that Kratos isn't the same person that he was because he's not. You know, you go through all the trauma that Kratos went to. You go through all that stuff. You're eventually going to get to a Kratos that is trying to do better. He went through all that with his past family. He was tricked to killing them. Do you guys honestly think he's going to do the exact same thing? He's going to go the exact same way? No, he wants to be better. And I understand that and I respect that. But to me, Thor hasn't had that buildup for years. Maybe he's had a couple conflicting things with his father, but he hasn't had enough to me justify him going straight to let's drop this beef and let's not necessarily be friends, but let's drop the beef. Then Odin just shows up and kills him out of nowhere. And then you go straight into that killing Odin killing Thor to fighting Odin. Now, the Odin fight was not bad by any means, but I do think it should have been a little bit more epic. That's why I've always been very vocal about God of War, where I feel like they have down-told the boss fights dramatically. There are a couple good fights. You fight a giant wolf in their version of Hell once. That was a good fight. There's a lot of running there. There's a lot of anticipation building up. And that was a way of showing Atreus that he's grown up during that segment. But the Odin fight was pretty much you fight him on the top level. And then Odin blows up the top level and you fight him on the bottom level with Freya. And to me, I didn't see that. It's like, look, Odin is supposed to be this badass boss, and I felt like he went down very easily. Not necessarily gameplay, but just story-wise. You know, it would have been nice if you would have had another fight. I thought when Ragnarok showed up at the end, because when he kills Freya's brother, is you were going to end up teaming up with the rest of the people to fight Ragnarok. That's what I thought. But instead of that, you just woke up, pretty much had these like last little cutscenes talking to people going up this hill, and then you're talking to your dad, and then that's pretty much the end of the game, essentially. Now, it's like I said, we got Ragnarok. He just disappeared because he destroyed Asgard, which someone that powerful I don't think would just die because Asgard's destroyed. You know, plenty of people survived. Obviously, it was, you know, the portal and stuff. But like I said, this creature was made in an abyss. I just don't find this power, this strength that Ragnarok has is just going to get destroyed. I don't buy that. Then you have Mjolnir. A lot of people assume that Kratos would end up with it like middle to the beginning of the game. They did nothing with that at all. Now, look, I'm not a story writer, but you know what would have been cool is eventually Kratos ends up using Mjolnir fighting Thor, and you find out that your axe has a lot of similar properties that the hammer does, so it's just like one of those things where they're both deemed usable by both Odin and Kratos. I mean, Thor and Kratos. So it would have been cool if, like, when you call back for your axe, you could either get the Mjolnir or your axe. And Thor does the exact same thing. And there's banter going between them. Like, you know, you're using his weapon, and then when you defeat Thor, you take the Mjolnir, and that's the fourth weapon of the game, lightning. It made sense, but it didn't happen. Well, I'm not saying that the story of this game was bad, but what I will say is there's a lot of aspects that I felt is unchecked in Ragnarok, God of War Ragnarok. And one of the biggest, in my knowledge, just playing the main story and playing a good amount of the side stuff, not all of it, obviously, but I played a good amount of it, is I'm not liking the way that they're pretty much not addressing what happened between Kratos and God of War 3 and Kratos in the game 2018. There's no connection there. How did he show up in another foreign land? I don't get it. And that's the biggest issues that I have with God of War Ragnarok is the gameplay's great. The story's good. You know, I'm not going to say it's amazing, but it's a good story. And I think that this is still worth your money, but I just feel like they opened up a lot of doors and had no intentions on shutting some of these doors. And that's just my opinion. But, you know, it's just my opinion on the matter. I still recommend you playing. What's funny is I made a video a couple of weeks ago that was saying, look, I'm worried about the story of God of War Ragnarok. And for the most part, they did everything in that video against what I thought they were going to do. They actually handled those segments very well. You know, Freya, they figured out how they're going to handle her. They figured out how they're going to handle the Thor and Odin, which I disagree with how they handled Thor, but, you know, it's not bad. It's just I felt like they could have done something better there. But then they opened more stuff like Ragnarok, you know, especially the big giant snake. I can't remember his name. He just disappeared, and you don't even know where he went to. Now, they kind of gave a little bit of banter dialogue after the game was beat of what happened to him. Like, they say he went back in time or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. This is Gaming Addict. I'm out of here. Peace.